Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man walah. Allahumma la ilma lana illa ma 'allamtana innaka antal alimul hakim. Allahumma 'allimna ma yanfa'una wa anfa'na bima 'allamtana wa zidna ilma wa arina al-haqqa haqqan warzuqna ittiba'ahu wa arina al-batila batilan warzuqna ijtinabahu wa adkhilna bi rahmatika fi ibadika as-salihin. Ameen ya rabbal alamin. Welcome everybody for our final lecture on the explanation of Ilbiri's poem on leading a purposeful life. And if you want to, inshallah, follow with us, just scan that code up there. Inshallah, we're going to get started. So we're going to go, I think last time we stopped at 87. At 80, I think we went up to 87 now. Inshallah, if Abu Abdullah, inshallah, can read for us. Just go all the way from 88 till 115, inshallah. Deep breath, bismillah. So just follow with him, okay, inshallah, just to kind of get a general meaning, and then we're going to explain them, bi'idhnillah. So he's going to read from 88 all the way to the end, inshallah. Yalla, bismillah. Barakallahu feek. طيب, let's go to, inshallah, we're going to finish all of it by the end of the night, inshallah. طيب, bismillah. So now he says, if you recall, and pay attention, inshallah, if you want some candy, we're going to be asking some questions in the end, okay? Yeah, you're looking, I know you're looking, you try, you got to earn it. طيب. So, if you remember, who's the author of this poem? What's his name? نعم تفضل. Abu Ishaq al-Ilbiri, صحيح. And who is he talking to? Abu Bakr, yeah? He already answered two, mashallah. I got to give him one at least. Yeah, تفضل. طيب, so Abu Ishaq, he's talking to Abu Bakr, right? To Abu Bakr. Why? What did Abu Bakr do to him? What did he do to him? He insulted him. Yeah, he insulted him. Arahu. Yeah, he talked about him, right? And Abu Ishaq, we know that he's a scholar. He's a faqih. He's a alim, right? He has a position in amongst the people. And someone insulted him, and it seems that it's someone young, someone very young. Okay, and if you remember last class, he started saying, after he gave him a lot of advice, he says, now you can say all this about me. He says, you can say this, and you can say that I was used to be good and now I'm bad, and a whole maybe 20 lines about what Abu Bakr can say about him. So now he says, أبا بكر كشفت أقل عيبي وأكثره ومعظمه سترت. Look what he's saying. He's saying, oh Abu Bakr, if you've said all that about myself, you've exposed the least of my faults. كشفت, you've exposed كشفت, okay? أقل عيبي, يعني the least of my faults. وأكثره ومعظمه سترت. يعني you don't even know what I've done in my life, right? طبعا we assume that the alim here, the scholar, يعني he's a righteous person, he's a pious person, and he's doing this to put his nafs down, right? But of course, a lot of times people, not a lot of times, people like to show their best, right? Nobody shows their worst, right? Like when you meet someone the first time, they show you the best dress, the best smell. Travel. That's why they tell you travel with them, and then you'll see. Travel with them, spend the night in the hotel with them, spend the time with them when they lose their money, and then you'll see their true colors. Tamam? So he says, you've only exposed a little bit of my faults, even though we listed a huge list. If anybody had all that, that's enough. And then he says, فَقُلْ مَا شِئْتَ فِيَّ مِنَ الْمَخَازِي. Say whatever you want to me about my faults, وَضَاعِفْهَا, and double it and triple it, فَإِنَّكَ قَدْ صَدَقْتَ. You would have said the truth. If you insulted me and added more and more and more, you would have spoken the truth. And subhanAllah, we all need to do this sometimes. We need to to put our nafs down, because the human being likes to praise themselves and likes to look at other people's faults, right? And we don't look at our own faults. We always talk about people's faults, and subhanAllah, especially in relationships, if people focus on their own faults instead of focus on other people's faults, the people you want them to fix their faults, they will see you and they will change, subhanAllah. So we always need to focus on ourselves first. So he says, whatever you do, you will be telling the truth. And then look what he says, وَمَهْبَا عِبْتَنِي فَلِفَرْطِ عِلْمِي بِبَاطِنَتِي كَأَنَّكَ قَدْ مَدَحْتَ. Okay? So now he's saying that whatever fault you find in me, okay, and all this insults, okay, it's like you have praised me. Why? Because you only mentioned a few things. Yeah, because if you really knew what I had, how bad I was, you know, it would be a disaster. Yani I would be humiliated. No one would even talk to me. But because you've mentioned just a few things, it's like you've praised me. Like, that's how bad I am, subhanAllah. And now he's going to start talking about sinning, right? And we know that sinning has a lot of bad consequences in this life and in the akhirah. Like when someone commits a sin, it's not just something that the angels write down and then it's going to be. No, it also affects you. Some ulama said it weakens the body. Some ulama mentioned that it makes the person actually look older and uglier and darker, and it causes people to go through difficulty. Yeah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, وَمَا أَصَابَكَ what's the ayah? وَمَا أَصَابَكَ مِنْ سَيِّئَةٍ فَمِنْ نَفْسِكَ. I think that's the ayah. I think that's the one in Surah An-Nisa. So whatever musibah that has come to you is from your own self, and it's because of something that you have done. So then he says, فَلَا تَرْضَ الْمَعَايِبَ فَهِيَ عَارٌ. Don't be pleased with faults. Don't be pleased with al-ma'ayib, which is the plural of aib, a fault. You know, sometimes people, I don't think, wallahu alam, a lot of people realize the importance of investing in yourself. You know, a lot of people, they're told, work hard at your job. You know, work hard and you'll be promoted. But in reality, if you work hard on your own self, I'm not saying to work hard at work, but if you work hard on your own self, then you will be promoted and you'll be able to help others. You'll be able to, and so a lot of times people, they don't focus on themselves. They don't invest in themselves, okay? And not just learning new skills, but getting rid of your faults, right? If we all just sat down and looked at our faults, and we just focused on that, مثلا, for the whole year, you will see a huge difference in your life and how people treat you. You know, if you just sit down, yes, a lot of times we just look at our good things. Oh, mashallah, I have a good job. Oh, I have a nice car. I have this. You know, I give sadaqah every once in a while. I come to Jum'ah. طيب, what about the salah that you miss? What about the foul mouth that you have? What about the ghiba that you have? What are these things? What about your family that you never talk to? What about, right? You know, what about the lack of time you spend with your family? And so when you actually write them down and list them, you're like, oh my God, yeah. You know, it's what he said in the poem. You know, it's like you're praising me if you just mention one thing. Okay? So now he's saying, don't be okay with it. And sometimes you're okay with having, you know, we're okay with having faults. Oh, it's okay, and I swear that's how Allah created me. No, Habibi. You have a foul mouth, work on it. Ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to remove that from you. You're someone who never comes to the masjid. Don't be okay with that. Yani, why would you be okay with such aib? So he says, فَلَا تَرْضَ الْمَعَيْبَ فَهِيَ عَارٌ. Okay, it's a shame. It's an embarrassment. عَظِيمٌ يُورِثُ الْإِنسَانَ مَقْتَى. He says, it's something that brings a lot of shame, and it causes the insan, or in another narration he says, يُورِثُ الْمَحْبُوبَ, يعني the one that you're close to, the one you have a relation with, it will cause them to push away from you. Right? The more someone knows about you, about your uyub, right, the more they're going to want to stay away from you, right? The more things people find out about you that are negative, the more they want to stay away from you. And the opposite is true. The more people find out that, oh, subhanAllah, this guy is so nice, this guy is so generous, the more they want to stay with you. So he's saying these uyub that you're neglecting, these faults that you're neglecting, these will cause people to push away from you and to dislike you. وَتَهْوِي بِالْوَجِيهِ مِنَ الثُّرَيَّةِ وَتُبْدِلُهُ مَكَانَ الْفَوْقِ تَحْتَ. He says, تهوي, يعني to go somewhere low, right? So he says, وَتَهْوِي بِالْوَجِيهِ مِنَ الثُّرَيَّةِ. Al-wajih is someone, a man who, يعني a man of distinction, a man of a high position. Al-wajih, له وجاهة يعني. So it will take a person who has a high position, okay, and will take him down من الثُّرَيَّة. الثُّرَيَّة, we mentioned الثُّرَيَّة before. It's one of the furthest and highest stars. Tamam? If you see the footnotes, what does he say in the footnotes? He says it's from the constellation of Taurus, known as At-Turayya in Arabic, right? And so one of the constellations in the sky, it's one of the furthest ones. So he says, if you're all the way up there, these uyub, they will take you down. They will take you down to the lowest place, okay? وَتُبْدِلُهُ مَكَانَ الْفَوْقِ تَحْتَ. It will take you from the top to the bottom. These uyub, right? When you find out that this person is this and this person is that, and people have no mercy. البشر ما يرحم. They don't have mercy. People don't have mercy. When they find out a fault in you, they forget all the khair that you have. Subhanallah. It's the truth. He says, كَمَا الطَّاعَاتُ. Now he's saying, but look at the ta'at. What are ta'at? The good deeds. He says, كَمَا الطَّاعَاتُ تُبْدِلُكَ الدَّرَارِ وَتَجْعَلُكَ الْقَرِيبَ وَإِنْ بَعُدْتَ. He says, كَمَا الطَّاعَاتُ. Now the good deeds, look at the opposite now. The good deeds, they do the exact opposite. Okay? تُبْدِلُكَ الدَّرَارِ. Okay? الدُّر, like the ayah in Surah An-Nur, كوكب دري. Yeah, some mention it's like the star that is really bright, because that ayah is talking about Ayatul Nur. That's Ayatul Nur, right? The ayah, the verse in Surah 24 that talks about the Nur of Allah, right? Which is kind of explaining the iman when it enters the heart of the believer. Okay, so this is what the ta'at, actually it raises you to this high star that is really bright. Yani its brightness goes really far. It says وَتَجْعَلُكَ الْقَرِيبَ وَإِنْ بَعُدْتَ. So because when you do good deeds, he's comparing what the good deeds do to a person. Okay, just like a star that is up really high and it's bright, it can reach, the benefit of the star can reach really far, even though it's really far and it's not close to you. So he says when you do good deeds, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will raise you, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will bring benefit to others from you, even if you're not there. Subhanallah. Right? And think of people who've done khair, people who spread knowledge, people who their benefit reaches us and we don't even know them, we've never met them. Subhanallah, like this poem itself, this poem itself has reached us after how many years? Hundreds of years, right? And we never met the person, but we are benefiting from his nur, right? And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive him and to reward him for this. And then he says, so وَتَجْعَلُكَ الْقَرِيبَ وَإِنْ بَعُدْتَ, even though you are far. He says وَتَنْشُرُ عَنْكَ فِي الدُّنْيَا جَمِيلًا فَتَلْقَى الْبِرَّ فِيهَا حَيْثُ كُنْتَ. Right, and it beautifies you, right? And remember, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Maryam, He says, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ سَيَجْعَلُ لَهُمُ الرَّحْمَنُ وُدًّا. The very, almost the last few verses of Surah Maryam, chapter 19, that those who have iman and do good deeds, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will cause other people to have affection for them. Right? Because we know when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when someone does a lot of ta'at, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves that person more. And when Allah loves them, the angels love them. When the angels love that person, they tell the people on earth to love him. And so you see a lot of ease with that person. So a ta'at can actually make your life easy. You never think like that. We don't think like that. How is me doing good deeds making my life easy? But that's what we learn from our deen. And that's what he's saying here. And it will diffuse beauty about you in this world, such that you find goodness in it wherever you are. Subhanallah. And that's what Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam says, مَنْ كَانَتِ الْآخِرَةُ هَمَّةً, right? فَرَّقَ اللَّهُ لَهُ أَمْرَهُ, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yeah, من كانت the other part I wanted to mention. وَمَنْ كَانَتِ الْآخِرَةُ هَمَّةً. Whoever the akhirah is his goal and his intention, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make his affairs easy. Yeah? And He will put al-ghina in his heart. He will feel content in his heart, and the dunya will come to him. Subhanallah. So he's saying when you do this ta'at, things become easy. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala opens doors for you. People are open with you and are nice to you. He says, وَتَمْشِي فِي مَنَاكِبِهَا كَرِيمًا وَتَجْنِي الْحَمْدَ مِمَّا قَدْ غَرَسْتَ. And you will walk on this earth with honor, with izzah. People will respect you. People will look up to you. When you have these good attributes, when you do ta'at, when you have good attributes, the people, you will walk on this earth kareem, regardless of your wealth status. Right? Nowadays, people, they see that you can only be honored with your status and your position and your wealth and your tamam. These are dunyawi things. But Allah says, you will be honored with ta'at and with good character. وَتَجْنِي الْحَمْدَ مِمَّا قَدْ غَرَسْتَ. And you'll be able to reap the praise, alhamd, the praise from people. How? From the things that you planted, which is what? The good deeds. So he's comparing now good deeds are things that you plant and you reap the fruits after. At-ta'at, good deeds, is you're like planting something and then you will see the fruits after, subhanAllah. And remember, he's talking to a young guy here. This is good advice for even us who are old. Yeah, we're so old. But even, but for the young guy specifically, you know, a lot of the young people we mentioned last time, they like, oh, let me live my life and then after 40, I'll fix myself up. No, your ghar starts now. And the opposite, when you plant something bad, it's going to reap something very bad in the future. And sometimes something you cannot fix, you cannot erase. SubhanAllah, how many times we hear from people, they posted something like 10 years ago, well, now they can't get a job. Or they want to go into politics, they said something 5 years ago, and now somebody found it on the internet, and their life is over. Or they posted something that's embarrassing or whatever, and now it has ruined them. Like we said, people they don't have any rahmah. And now he continues with advice. He says, وَأَنْتَ الْآنَ لَمْ تُعْرَفْ بِعَيْبٍ. So now he's telling him, listen, you're still okay now. You're still young. You haven't ruined your life. You're still beginning your life. وَأَنْتَ الْآنَ لَمْ تُعْرَفْ بِعَيْبٍ. At present, you're not known to have any big faults, right? وَلَا دَنَّسْتَ ثَوْبَكَ مُذْ نَشَأْتَ. He's comparing now his soul, his heart, to a thawb, to a cloth. Where do we get this from? Anybody know? It has something to do with the word thawb. No, it's a surah. It's Tabarak. Surah 74, I think. Literally like one of the earliest revelations. يا أيها المدثر قم فأنذر وربك فكبر وثيابك فطهر. Now, if you look at some translations, it says, purify your thawb, your clothes. But majority of the mufassirin, they said this also means your heart. يعني purify your heart. Where he says, وَلَا دَنَّسْتَ ثَوْبَكَ مُذْ نَشَأْتَ. يعني you haven't impurified your heart and your life yet. Yani you're still good. Because when you're born, you're born clean, alhamdulillah, right? And until you're baligh, right? Until you've reached maturity, nothing's written against you. It's a clean slate, right? When else it's a clean slate for someone? When they accept Islam, when they accept Islam, it's a clean slate. And some say when you go to Hajj, it's a clean slate as well, even the kaba'ir. Some say it's only the صغائر. طيب. He says, ولا سابقت في ميدان زور ولا أوضعت فيه ولا خببت. He's saying, and you still haven't, you haven't gone deep into falsehood and cheating and lying and all these sins, right? Because remember, someone can commit a sin, make tawbah, and then he's still good. But other people can go really deep, as if, and then they. What's the famous story that is mentioned in the Sunnah? The story of. Yes, but no, there's another story that's very detailed actually. It's Allah hints to it in Surah Al-Hashr. كمثل الشيطان إذ قال للإنسان كفر. Allah gives the example of when Shaitan told to this person, Ukfur. Who's this person? They say his name was Barsisa. They say that his name was Barsisa. And they say that this person was a abid, like he was a very committed worshipper. Tamam? And the story goes, I don't think we have time for the story, but the story goes that he, there was 3 brothers, they had a sister, they had to go for battle, and they're like, who's going to take care of our sister? Oh, they said, this guy is, the best worshipper. So they went to him. And then Shaitan, and then basically, the person would stay away from the girl. She's in a different room. And then slowly Shaitan would tell me, just go say hi to her. Don't drop the food outside. Someone might take it. Shaitan, subhanAllah. طبعا Shaitan didn't come and say, Ukfur, leave Islam. But the story ends with what? With Shaitan saying, leave Islam. Shaitan told him to prostrate to him. And look how Shaitan is very smart. Right? He knows the whole marketing agenda. He goes step by step. First of all, talk to her. Then go in and sit with her, and then have food with her, and then this, and then that, and then it ended up being zina, right? And then ended up having a child, and then ended up killing the child, and then ended up killing the girl, subhanAllah, and lying to the brothers. And then yani he got him so far, he said, prostrate to me. Shaitan said to the person, prostrate to me, and I will save you. He prostrated, left Islam, and he died on kufr, subhanAllah. And so he's saying, you haven't gone that deep. You're still good. He says, وَلَا سَابَقْتَ فِي مَيْدَانَ زُورٍ, right? In a track of falsehood. وَلَا أَوْضَعْتَ فِيهِ وَلَا خَبَبْتَ. You haven't really walked there, or you haven't ran there. خَبَبْتَ يعني went really fast. You haven't really, you're just kind of just starting. شوي شوي. And you're still good. So don't fall into it. Because sometimes people say, like, they'll be like, oh, I'll commit sins, then I'll make tawbah. But who told you can come back? And who told you that your heart will not be, will not start having doubts? Because what happens when someone sins? Like it's not like taking a pen or a pencil and writing and then erasing, like tawbah. It's not always like that. A person can make a sin and not make tawbah and make another sin, and then his heart starts getting doubts, right? And things start getting difficult, and it becomes an intense test for the person. And that's when you see people are starting to be doubtful about their deen, and they leave. Or they become really deviated. Or a girl takes off her hijab. Or why? Oh, because I found Islam is not the truth. No, because something happened. You've been disobeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then this is all because of your sins. So he's saying you haven't done that yet, right? He says, فَإِن لَمْ تَنْأَ عَنْهُ نَشِبْتَ فِيهِ. If you don't stay away from it, you will get stuck. نشبت يعني you will get stuck into it, right? Because some of the sins are you get addicted to them, and it's hard to leave them, right? نشبت فيه ومن لك بالخلاص إذا نشبت. And who's going to liberate you? Who's going to save you, right? You cannot guarantee. And we mentioned that some of these sins, they can be very addictive. Yeah, from zina to khamr to riba to profanity, to all these things, right? They can be very addicting, and people can fall into them, and it's very hard for them to get out of them. He says, وَدَنَّسَ مَا تَطَهَّرَ مِنْكَ حَتَّى كَأَنَّكَ قَبْلَ ذَلِكَ مَا طَهَرْتَ. He said, and these sins that if you get on the wrong path and you start committing all these sins, it will soil, it will impurify whatever you had clean. Whatever you had worked on and you had a clean heart, now it's begun to become filthy, right? As if you were never pure. And sometimes you see like this guy Barsisa, for example. Look at him in the end and look at him before. If someone saw him right as he's going to the king to be executed, because in the story, the brothers found out in a dream. They had a dream, Allah gave them a dream, and they saw what happened. And so they told each other, oh, did you have the dream? Yeah. So they said, oh, he killed our sister. So then they wanted to take him to the king to be executed, right? So compare him now, Barsisa, to the abid he was. He says, كَأَنَّكَ مَا طَهَرْتَ, as if you were never even a good person. Tamam? So don't go that path. He's saying don't go that path, right? Don't try it. Even if you're curious, don't even go there. وَسِرْتَ أَسِيرَ ذَنْبِكَ فِي وَثَاقٍ. So now he's saying, he's giving the example, if you go to that path, it's like you're an asir. What's an asir? A prisoner. Okay? But not just any prisoner. He says, وَصِرْتَ, you will become an asir, أَسِيرَ ذَنْبِكَ فِي وَثَاقٍ, in shackles. تمام? وَكَيْفَ لَكَ الْفَكَاكُ وَقَدْ أُسِرْتَ. How are you going to be free when you're shackled? Who's going to free you when you're shackled? Right? And subhanAllah, that's the danger of al-ma'asi, of sins. Once a person is overwhelmed with them, they can get stuck there forever. Because, like you said, there's a lot of, I think it was Ibn Taymiyyah, he wrote a treatise, and he mentioned like 20 or something consequences of sins, right? That it causes, weakness, and it causes sadness, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Taha, وَمَنْ أَعْرَضَ عَنْ ذِكْرِ فَإِنَّ لَهُ مَعِيشَةً ضَنْكَ. Whoever strays away from my remembrance, okay, from my guidance, then he will have a difficult life. فَإِنَّ لَهُ مَعِيشَةً ضَنْكَ. And that's when shaitan can come to the person. He says, وَسِرْتَ أَسِيرَ ذَنْبِكَ فِي وَثَاقٍ, right? وَكَيْفَ لَكَ الْفَكَاكُ وَقَدْ أُسِرْتَ. Who's going to free you? And now so now let's say the person took the advice, and he's tried to stay away from sinning. طبعا sinning in public, in private, that's between you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But what also causes you to sin? You guys tell me. I'm the only one talking here. What else can cause you to sin? Huh? Outside influence, na'am, and more specifically? And nafs, no, but your outside influence. Huh? Friends, yeah. Your friends, your colleagues, right? So now he's going to start talking about, your environment. So yes, you can take care of yourself, but if you don't change your environment, if you stay in a bad environment, right? What's going to happen? You're going to, it's like you're asking for it, right? It's like because the story of the one who killed 99, what's one of the big lessons we learn from that? One of the big lessons we learn is this man, right? For those of you who never heard the story, he killed 99, right? And so he went to, I guess, a abid, not a scholar, someone who, and then he told him, will Allah have, forgive me? What did he say? He said, you're done. Khalas, who's going to forgive you? You killed 99 people, man. He made him number 100, right? And then he went looking for a scholar. He found a scholar. And then the scholar told him, who can stop Allah, who can come between you and Allah's forgiveness? Right? But what did he tell him? He said, you need to change your environment. You need to change your environment, subhanAllah. So he says, وَخَفْ أَبْنَاءَ جِنْسِكَ وَخْشَ مِنْهُمْ. أبناء جنسك, your peers, your colleagues, right? The sons of your jins, وَخَفْ, fear your peers and dread them. وَخْشَ مِنْهُمْ. Be careful from them, okay? How careful should you be? Look what he says. He says, كَمَا تَخْشَى الضَّرَاغِمَ وَالسَّبَنْتَ. Dirgham, I think is the singular, is a lion, okay? Like an aggressive lion. He says, so be careful from your peers. Now he's not talking about all the peers, tamam? He's talking about the bad influence. So the people who have bad influence on you, or who might have bad influence on you, he says, stay away from them and be afraid of them, just as you dread the lions and the sabanta, the leopards, the tigers. If there was a lion right now, you would sit there like that, Adrian? You would sit like that, relaxed, you'd be on top of the roof, right? Right? He said that's how you should fear them, and you should really protect yourself from them, and that's how much he believes that they can influence you. They say if you want to know someone, if you want to know your child, and they have a phone, go check the most dialed numbers. It's probably their influence is coming from them, right? So the biggest influence you have is the people around you, and subhanAllah, it's so true. It's 100% true. The Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam made it very clear in the hadith of the musk seller, right? He says the example of a bad friend is like when you go to a blacksmith. We don't have any. What's an equivalent of a blacksmith here? Like someone who works in metal industry, warehouse, somewhere that smells bad. Tamam? So even if you don't touch things or work, you come out smelling bad. You come out, you have a bad smell. You didn't touch anything, but you come out with a bad smell. That's how the bad influence is. Even if you're a shy person and you sit with bad influence, eventually it's going to rub off of you. If you're someone who prays, go sit, don't do this, but go sit with people who don't pray and spend time with them. Eventually, you're going to start missing a salah. Oh, it's okay, I'll join this one with this one. All of a sudden, you're not coming to salah. What happened to you? Oh, subhanAllah. That's it. That's how it works, subhanAllah. So you should fear them very, So then he says, وَخَالِطْهُمْ وَزَايِلْهُمْ حِدَارًا. طبعا sometimes you still have to mix with them. You still have to, and especially if they're relatives, right? Because, we can't cut our family off, right? And some people you can't cut them off. But he says, خَالِطْهُمْ وَزَايِلْهُمْ. This is like contradictory. He says, be with them and don't be with them. He says, be with them and part ways in the right time. Spend what you need to spend time with them, but don't stay too long or don't spend too much time with them. Give them their rights, basically he's saying, okay? وَكُنْ كَالسَّامِرِي إِذَا لُمِسْتَ. Who's a Samiri? Who's a Samiri? This deserves a chocolate. Who's a Samiri? Huh? What surah? It's the name of the surah is 2 letters. Like I think there's only one. Who's خلاص يلا Abu Abdullah تفضل. So Taha, in Surah Taha, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us about this man who was named As-Samiri. Now As-Samiri, if you know the story, Musa alayhi salam and Harun, they freed Bani Israel from Pharaoh. So now they go, they cross the sea, right? And then Musa goes to meet Allah. And Musa talks to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he leaves Harun in charge. Okay? Now Bani Israel, subhanAllah, they're easily fooled. So this guy, As-Samiri, he convinces them to build a calf out of gold. Okay? So now when Musa comes back and he sees this and he's like, oh my God, Allah just freed you from, and now you're already committing shirk. So then he says, قَالَ فَمَا خَطْبُكَ يَا سَامِرِي, right? What did you do, O Samiri? He says, so some of the narrations say that he took something from the traces of Jibreel alayhi salam, and he used that, some kind of magic to create this calf that makes sounds, right? So then the punishment for him says, إِنَّ لَكَ فِي الْحَيَاةِ أَن تَقُولَ لَا مِسَاسٍ. Okay? So what does that mean? In some of the tafsir, they say that Allah punished him with this punishment that if he touched someone, like he would get a high fever, right? And if someone touched him, he would get a high fever as well. And so his whole life was like he can't touch anybody and nobody can touch him. Tamam? This is his punishment, subhanAllah. So he says, and be with them like that. Like, don't touch them and don't let them touch you. With these bad people, with the bad influence. Don't get involved with them, don't touch them, and don't let them come close to you. Just do what you have to do and move on, right? And it's good advice when you think about it. Because it's very easy to get dragged into a bad influence, subhanAllah. And even in my personal life, I can think of examples like that. I can actually think of maybe like 2-3 years where I spent time with this person and what a bad influence it was. And I can think of periods of time where I spent with another person and it was so beneficial. You're just learning. He reminds you of Allah, he reminds you of Salah, he reminds you of this. Subhanallah. And from my experience, it's hard to find a good friend. It's not easy, subhanAllah. It's a ni'mah. Like it's something you should ask for. People ask for cars and houses, but to ask for a good friend, for a good companion, a good neighbor, that's something that people should ask for, and we don't do that. He says, وَإِن جَهِلُوا عَلَيْكَ, okay, وَإِن جَهِلُوا عَلَيْكَ فَقُلْ سَلَامًا لَعَلَّكَ سَوْفَ تَسْلَمُ إِن فَعَلْتَ. Okay, so now, if they mess around with you, if they treat you bad, tamam, don't fall for their trap. Because sometimes people, they do that, so they, they want you to join them. Some people, their attitude is, if we're bad, we want everybody else to be bad with us. Just like Iblis alayhi salam. Iblis, what did he say? He says, "Khalas, I'm screwed. I'm going to hell. Let me bring everybody else with me." Tamam? And so a lot of people are like that. And so he says, don't fall for that. Someone cusses you, don't go swear back at him 3 times and let them get the best of you. He says, because Allah tells us what about Ibadur Rahman in Surah Al-Furqan? وَإِذَا خَاطَبَهُمُ الْجَاهِلُونَ قَالُوا سَلَامًا. If the ignorant people talk to them, if they insult them, if they try to get the worst of them, قَالُوا سَلَامًا. Okay, sure, man. Peace. Yeah, I don't want to deal with you, right? فَقُلْ سَلَامًا. Why? لَعَلَّكَ سَوْفَ تَسْلَمُ إِن فَعَلْتَ. Right? He said, you will be safe if you do that. You will save yourself because you don't want to fall into sin. Tamam? So he says, if you do that, you've guaranteed yourself to be safe in this life and in the hereafter. وَمَنْ لَكَ بِالسَّلَامَةِ فِي زَمَانٍ يَنَالُ الْعُصْمَ إِلَّا إِنْ عُصِمْتَ. So he's saying, and what can guarantee you safety in a time, right, where it's very hard to be safe, he's saying. Unless Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protected you, specifically. And I mean, if he said that about his time, what about our time? It's not easy to be a practicing Muslim here in the West. Even in the East now. Don't feel like you're disadvantaged. Even in the East, But here specifically, you have to really put effort. If you just doze off, you can find yourself in a ditch somewhere, in terms of your taqwa and your iman. So he says, who can save you, right, in a time like this? So you need to be very careful. He says, وَلَا تَلْبَثْ بِحَيٍّ فِيهِ ضَيْمٌ يُمِيتُ الْقَلْبَ إِلَّا إِن كُبِلْتَ. Do not stay in an area where there's injustice. So he's telling him now in general, don't go in a place that's bad for you, that has injustice, that has dhulm, right? Because that will kill your heart, that will affect your heart. That's going to affect you, even if you're not doing anything. It's just the nazar, the looking, We know how that can affect the heart, right? That causes a dot into the heart. He says, إِلَّا إِن كُبِلْتَ, unless you're chained, unless you're forced to be there. Sometimes we're forced to be in a bad place, in a bad environment, with bad people. He says, unless you're forced there, but then if you're done, khalas, leave. And then he says, look, he says, I have a solution for you. He says, وَغَرِّبْ فَالْغَرِيبُ لَهُ نَفَاقٌ وَشَرِّقْ إِن بِرِيقِكَ قَدْ شَرِقْتَ. So now he's talking about traveling. And subhanAllah, those of you who've traveled, you can see that travel can really have a big effect, right? My family traveled a lot. And so sometimes if for example, a father has a son who's just in a bad environment, he's really misguided. One of the best solutions is to change his environment. And one of the best solutions is to move. Just move. Just the move itself can change the person, right? And I've seen it myself. I've seen it within myself, and I've seen it other people. Just moving. Sometimes it's moving the community. Move from this community to another community. Or move the city. Or move the whole country. Move from one country to another. Right? And that can help you. And also Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala actually kind of indicated. He said what? قُلْ سِيرُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ. Go travel in the land. Tamam? So there's nothing wrong with that if you travel. He says, he's mentioning here that the Arabic expression غَرِّب وَشَرِّقْ literally means goes west and east, right? Al-Gharb is west and east, Al-Sharq is east, means travel the world. Travel the world. طيب. And then he says, فَلَيْسَ الزُّهْدُ فِي الدُّنْيَا خُمُولًا. We talked about zuhd before. What did we say a zuhd was? Who remembers? I need to get rid of these. What's a zuhd? Ahsant. Yeah, he's gonna. You make sure you brush your teeth tonight. You're getting all the chocolates. The chocolates are all on this side. You guys, you don't want chocolate? So he says, فَلَيْسَ الزُّهْدُ فِي الدُّنْيا خُمُولًا. الزُّهْد actually has many definitions. Some of the ulama, they say that الزُّهْد is عبادة قلبية. عبادة قلبية. What does that mean? That it's an act of worship of the heart. So it's not about leaving the dunya behind. It's not about that. Because someone can be walking around with ripped clothes, right? And he can be the most evil person. It doesn't make him zahid or righteous or pious, right? And someone can be driving a Ferrari and he's a muttaqi. He's someone who fears Allah, right? And he's a zahid, he's not in love with the dunya. And someone can be broke, poor, and he's in love with the dunya. So it's a relationship between your heart and the dunya. And some of them, they said that az-zuhd is to stay away from the mubah that you don't need in this life. Al-mubah is the things that are permissible, right? And so some of them said az-zuhd is to is when a person stays away from the mubah, the permissible things that he doesn't need. Sometimes people are like, this is mubah. But playing football is mubah, doing this is mubah, watching this is mubah, playing PlayStation is okay, and right. But the question is, do you need it? Let's just I know some of you will say, oh Shaykh, everything's haram. No, but you're a traveler right now, right? And you're a traveler, and your destination is the akhirah, to meet Allah. And so we said this is a dar ubur. This is a home. The place we're in right now, earth, is a place that you're supposed to travel, right? It's not a place that you're supposed to stay in. And the place you're going to stay in forever is right after this. And your goal here is to get as many hasanat as possible and to get as little sayyat as possible. So you have to be smart investor. You have to be smart. You have to say to yourself, this mubah thing, do I need it or can I do something better? And sometimes you can turn a mubah into something that is a ibadah, right? And so az-zuhd is when your heart is not attached to the dunya. Let me give you an example. Someone, he's wealthy. And then all of a sudden, something happens, he loses all his wealth. He's still as content as he was before. He still has rida and happiness and content with Allah, even after he lost all his wealth. That's someone who's zahid. Meaning he's not attached to the dunya. Right? He's not attached to dunya. Someone who's not zahid, mathalan, he doesn't have much, then Allah gives him a lot of wealth, then khalas, he forgets about Allah, he forgets about his sadaqah, his salah. That's someone who's in love with the dunya, right? So his heart is attached with the dunya. So he says, فَلَيْسَ الزُّهْدُ فِي الدُّنْيَا خُمُولًا. He's saying to him, az-zuhd is not that you sit and you stay home and you do nothing and you just read Quran. That's not zuhd. That's not zuhd. it's not about being lazy and sitting down and doing nothing, right? Some people have this misunderstanding of zuhud, that it's for someone to, sell all their stuff and just go somewhere. Like the innovation that some of the rabbis and the priests did, or the monks, right? Where they left everything and they just go and they say, oh, we're not going to marry, we're not going to do this. That's not zuhud. 3 people came to the Prophet ﷺ, right? And the Prophet ﷺ told them, if you stay away from my sunnah, then you're not from me. One of them said what? I will not marry. Another of them said what? Yeah, I'm going to fast every day. And the other one said what? See, one said I will not marry. One said I will fast all the days. And the other one said what? I will? Yeah, or salah, or he mentioned qiyam al-layl or something like that. And so, and Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, like, whoever, that's not my sunnah, right? And so, that's not zuhud. So he says, لَأَنْتَ بِهَا الْأَمِيرُ إِذَا زَهِدْتَ. But if you do become a zahid, and we said someone zahid who, even he might have wealth, but his heart is not attached to that. His heart is not attached to that. Like he's not in love with it. If he lost it, he's the same, right? This laptop is here. This laptop breaks right now. He's the same. Allah not test us, but it's the same for him. Yeah, may Allah keep us. Like it's easy to talk about, but to actually practice zuhud properly, subhanallah, it's because zahid is someone who, he will get مثلا like Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. When you read some of the stories, you're like, how can someone do that? Like he will get all these ghanima, and then a person will come, and then Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, like there's, I believe the narration mentioned, a flock of sheep between 2 hills, and this person comes, and the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam says, take it. It's all yours. That's how generous the Prophet says. He says, take all of it. And so the man runs to his tribe. The man accepts Islam, and he runs to his people, and he says, go to Muhammad because he doesn't fear poverty. He doesn't, لا يخشى الفقر. He doesn't fear poverty. That's part of zuhud. He said, if you become a zahid, then you will become an amir. You will reach a very high status. And remember, whether a zahid is not about what you have, it's about something in the heart. He says, وَلَوْ فَوْقَ الْأَمِيرَ تَكُونُ فِيهَا سُمُوًا وَافْتِخَارًا كُنْتَ أَنْتَ. He said, and if there was a higher position than a commander, I think commander is probably one of the highest positions. He says, if there was a higher position than a commander, you would be it if you had zuhud. You will reach the highest. He's really praising zuhud here, right? And this is, I guess, a characteristic that many people misunderstand and don't put much importance about, right? Because really, we've been talking about the dunya, about this and that, right? And a lot of times we misunderstand what it means to abandon the dunya. It doesn't mean to not be wealthy. It means to not be attached to it, right? It's something that you, maybe it takes some time to understand. But he says, if you reach that level, even you'll be higher than a commander. وَإِن فَرَّقْتَهَا وَخَرَجْتَ مِنْهَا إِلَى دَارِ السَّلَامِ فَقَدْ سَلِمْتَ. He says, and if you depart, okay, فَرَّقْتَهَا, depart and leave it. What's he talking about here? This pronoun is going to the dunya. He says, and if you leave the dunya, right? Remember, leaving the dunya doesn't mean like you don't get involved in the dunya, is you detach it from your heart. You don't love it, okay? وَإِن فَرَّقْتَهَا وَخَرَجْتَ مِنْهَا, and you leave it, okay? For إِلَى دَارِ السَّلَامِ, then فَقَدْ سَلِمْتَ. You leave it and you focus on the akhirah. Dar al-salam is al-akhirah, the Jannah. Here is referring to وَاللَّهُ يَدْعُو إِلَى دَارِ السَّلَامِ in Surah Yunus. Then you will have فَقَدْ سَلِمْتَ. Then you will be safe. Remember, we're on a journey, and our goal is to be safe on the end of the journey, which is يوم القيامة. He says, وَإِن كَرَّمْتَهَا وَنَظَرْتَ مِنْهَا بِإِجْلَالٍ فَنَفْسَكَ قَدْ أَهَنْتَ. And if you focus on the dunya and you raise it more than it should be raised, right? Because remember, we said that the dunya is worth nothing. And if it was worth anything, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wouldn't have given a kafir any water. And so we shouldn't care much about it. And remember, he said, and if you lose from it, don't care. As long as you have a good relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He says, but if you honor the dunya and you praise the dunya and you focus your life on the dunya, okay, and you revere it, بِإِجْلَالٍ فَنَفْسَكَ قَدْ أَهَنْتَ, then you would have lowered yourself. You would have put yourself in a very bad position. Tamam? And then he says, جَمَعْتُ لَكَ النَّصَائِحِ. So we're almost done. He says, I have gathered the advice for you. فَامْتَثِلْهَا. So try to follow it. حَيَاتَكَ فَهِيَ أَفْضَلُ مَا امْتَثَلْتَ. This is your life. And so you need to take care of your life. And all of us here listening to him, we need to take this advice and take care of our life. حياتك فهي أفضل وامتثلت وطولت العتاب وزدت فيه. And he's saying, I know that I have lengthened the nasiha, the advice, and I made it long. لأنك في البطالة قد أطلت. He says, because you have been very lazy and idle for too long. يعني you've been wasting too much time. So I wanted this to kind of be very impactful. Al-batala, they use it for unemployment. So it just means like someone is sitting down doing nothing, right? And in this life, you can't do that. You can't do that. You have to take action. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells the Prophet sallam in Surah Al-Sharh, in the last ayah, فَإِذَا فَرَغْتَ فَانصَبْ. As soon as you get free time, as soon as you're done from something, فَانصَبْ يعني, get up. Next thing. There's no time to waste. There's no time to sit down and watch Netflix and waste time. I'm not saying doing something mubah, okay, is haram, but the smart person takes advantage of his time. The smart person takes advantage of time, and you know what? You will never regret it. That's enough to say that you will never regret it. You will never regret a second that you spend in the ta'ah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then he says, فلا تأخذ بتقصيري وسهوي وخذ بوصيتي لك إن رشدت. He says, don't, sometimes we don't take advice from someone because of their past. Remember we talked about, and so somebody comes to you with a good advice, but you look at him, they're like, who are you, man, to give me advice? I'm a doctor, I'm sheikh. You're like this, right? He says, don't focus on my taqsir, on my faults, but focus on the nasiha, because my faults have nothing to do with the nasiha. If the nasiha is true, take it, صح? And if the nasiha is not true, it's not good for you, don't take it. But don't make my shortcomings an excuse for you to not follow the advice, because now you are at fault. Now you'll be at fault, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will be witness against you if you don't take the nasiha, because it's not a valid excuse. Is it a valid excuse for you to not take good advice because of the person talking to you? No. Hatta if it was Iblis. Yeah? Even if it was Iblis who gave you advice. Don't we know the story of Ayatul Kursi? Anybody know the story of Ayatul Kursi? Abu Hurairah, yeah? What happened? You got it. You know the story. He was guarding the Baytul Mal, right? And then this person came, right? And he said, give me some money. And then Abu Hurairah gave him. And then and Nabi Sallallahu told him that was right. If he comes again, don't give him. And then he comes, and then the third day, he said, give me some money, and I'll give you something good. And he told him Ayatul Kursi, I believe. That's the story. So why am I saying this? He said, so even sometimes you can get good advice from someone who's bad. Yani. So not because it's Iblis, you don't take it. Yani. He gave him something that was good. Tamam? طيب. But don't listen to Iblis and say, oh, it's good advice. طيب. He says, وقد أردفتها 9 حسانا وكانت قبل ذا 106. He says, I followed up with it with nine more lines. So it used to be 106, and now it's 115. So he added 9 more. وصلى على تمام الرسل ربي وعترته الكريمة ما ذكرت. And so, of course, from the etiquettes is to finish the gatherings of knowledge or books or whatever with sending the peace and blessings on the Prophet ﷺ. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على عبدك ورسولك محمد, and upon his family وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Alhamdulillah, we finished it. I hope it was beneficial. And something I like to do, and maybe you can do that, is I like to listen to it. You can actually go to YouTube, and there's a lot of nice recordings of it, like munshideen, with a very nice voice, and you can listen to it and benefit from it, inshaAllah, bi'idhnillah, online. There's plenty of them that you can listen to, bi'idhnillah. طيب بارك الله فيكم. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.